Okay, thank you very much for having me. I will change to full screen, and yes. So as you were saying, I'm a PhD student in Paris School of Economics. I'm on the job market this year, and this is my job market paper. And in this paper, I study what I call the indirect effect. No, but let me explain you what are the indirect effects and how immigrants can affect this indirect effect. So first, I would like to start to motivate this paper um, with where I get the idea. I got this idea from Laura de Renoncourt. Actually, it was her job market paper also. She studied how the Great Migration in the U.S. The Great Migration is a black migration that started in the 1940s from south to north mostly, and she realized that this big wave of migrants changed completely the social mobility where those black immigrants arrived, no? And and after doing that, I thought, well, what if I start looking at current migratory waves, no? Migration that happening now, no? And because I cannot look at income, no, in the moment because most of the channels that are related to changes in the neighborhood occur or affect children, do not affect adults. No, I thought, well, what if I look at test scores instead of income? So this is where I got this idea. And the other motivation I got is that the migration, as you may know, is predicted to increase because of climate change. And the other thing that I found interesting it was to look at the understudy phenomenon of south-south migration. My specific study will be representative of Latin America, which represents south-south migration, a specific case of south-south migration, but it still could be interesting because it's different to the typical south-north migration. No? So in this context, I study how immigrants can affect test score. Now, so the research question is the following: in general, the literature look at the impacts of immigrants on native test scores by looking at the immigrant peer effect. No, this is following the Huxley 2000 with different alternatives, but it's mainly that. No, but migration can also trigger indirect effects. This is what I call indirect effects. And one type of indirect effects, in my case, what I think is the most important, is the relocation responses from natives. I said that it's similar to native flight, but actually it's not the same as native flight. No? This is actually only natives respond. We know that native flights are responsive to avoid interaction with immigrants. This that doesn't have to be the case. But at least we know that natives could be moved, and that could have an effect in the neighborhood. No, and in particular, this could affect the natives that remain in the neighborhood. So in this paper, I address this problem, and I look at the influence of the neighborhood change once immigrants arrive. So I see how the neighborhood influence on test score in particular will change once immigrants arrive, and I would say that in this case will be particular because of indirect effect. So sorry. For to study this phenomenon, I will do something very simple that is just look before and after, before immigrants arrive and after immigrants arrive. So it's a different diff. But I need a large and sharp increase of immigrants. And in this case, I thought that the Chilean case will be particularly useful to study this question. Why it is useful? Because in the last from 1952 to 2012, so 60 years, we didn't have any change in the proportion of immigrants. We have a very, how can I say, homogeneous society. And then from 2012, the immigrants start to increase. As I will describe after, this mostly increased by other Latin American countries. And as we can see, it increased very fast from 2012 to 2019. It increased almost 7% in 6 years. Okay, so So I decided I would like to look at Chile because of the sharp increase. And now I will describe what do I do. What I basically do is to compare two methods. So first, the one that is able to capture the neighborhood influence on student test scores. No? This is what I will call neighborhood effects. And another method that you are probably more familiar with is that is this Hawksby way or approach immigrant peer effect. So I estimate first neighborhood effect, looking at two windows before immigrants arrive and after immigrants start arriving. And then I provide a shift share to see if the neighborhood effect changed because of the immigrants' arrival. And that's one part, that's one method. And then I estimate immigrant peer effect following Hawksby. And finally, in order to give more, to provide more arguments, more evidence in favor of changing the composition at the neighborhood level, I do different diffs to see if there is natives moving out, natives moving to private school, and others, no? Increasing segregation and others. So the results, I find that there is a negative effect of immigrants on neighborhood effect. There's a decrease in test score by 0.14 test standard deviation. I also find that there's a null immigrant peer effect at school grade or class level. So this means that there is no what I call direct effect. Natives are not doing worse because they are interacting more with immigrants. And then I look at the change in native composition now. I found that natives are moving to other neighborhoods around one-to-one relation. One immigrant coming in is one native moving out. Natives are moving to private school. 0.4 natives are moving to private school when one immigrant is coming into a neighborhood. And there is an increase in school segregation. And also the richest students in the neighborhood are those that are moving away. So what I said that is the most plausible story is that academically stronger natives move away, decreasing the learning opportunity for those that remain in the neighborhood, for the natives that remain in the neighborhood. Okay, so these are my results. And my contributions are twofold. I believe that I contribute to the impact of immigrants on native test scores by saying that looking at immigrant peer effect is only part of the story. If we want to have the complete one, we must look also at how neighborhood change once immigrants arrive. I also contribute in the neighborhood effect literature by showing that we can look at test score and anticipate possible effects on social mobility in about 20 years. Assuming that we look at social mobility or income when kids are 30 years old, they go to that age. And I also expand the neighborhood effects methodology in a different context, so Chile instead of the US, and look at a different outcome that is the test score instead of income. So, and finally, my findings, the fact that I found that once that immigrants are moving in, the neighborhood opportunity decrease, question the neighborhood effect stability, and it's a warning for moving to opportunity type of policy. So I guess that you may have many questions about neighborhood effects and how do I estimate, and that's what I will do after talking about the context now. So first I will talk about the specific context of Chile. Then I will give you a conceptual framework, just to give you an idea of general equilibrium effects or versus partial equilibrium effect, or what I call indirect effects versus direct effect. And then I go directly to the estimation of neighborhood effects. How do I do that? And then the shift share and my results. I will just give you the intuition of neighborhood effect estimation. Then I will go to talk about immigrant peer effects and how do I do that. And finally, I will describe how neighborhood changes once immigrants arrive. So, okay. So first, this is the enrollment in primary school in Chile. As you can see, from 2013, start increasing importantly, and the enrollment changed from 1% to 5%. The graph that I showed you at the beginning was census information, so it's only adults. As you can see, the increase is less important in children because most of migrants are adults, no? And it's what people describe as labor migration. But still, we can see an important change, like 4% from in 6 years, no? As well. And now about the distribution in Chile. This is a map of Chile. So it's very long and narrow. So I assume the capital, Santiago. And as you can see, most of migrants located in the north of Chile, where this is the mining activity. Actually, it's not because immigrants are working in the mining sector. They work mostly in services, but still, they located north because of historical reasons. And I don't have a slide where I talk about the different nationalities of immigrants, so I guess I should do it now. Most of immigrants came from Venezuela first, then Peru, Colombia, Bolivia, and Haiti as well. No? So and of course, according to different nationalities, they arrive in different places because of historical reasons. In the north, it's mostly Bolivians and Colombians, and the center is Peruvian, Venezuelans, and Haitians. Now about the data, I have the universe of students in primary school. I got their 4th grade test scores, and I can follow them from 2005 to 2019. I also have all the municipalities where they attend the school. This is what I will call neighborhood. And I also can identify students, so I can see if they can move from one neighborhood to another. Why I need this? Because my neighborhood effect estimation will require that I can follow students and use different timing of exposure in different neighborhoods. I will give you the intuition afterwards. I also have what I call the cognitive test, which is not most correctly because it's just the average of reading and math. And I have the years of education of the mother that I transform into rank. I got both outcome transformed into rank just because if I do that, then the relation is linear, something that also will be very useful for estimation of neighborhood effect. So now about the conceptual framework, as I was telling you, I would like to show you how do I think about this and my results. And so we can start with a very simple model where Y is the outcome of a student. We can talk of test scores. N is the level of native peers. F is foreign peers, no? And L is local institution. So the general equilibrium effect of migration is the total derivative of H with F, no, the change of immigrants, where we have the first term will be the indirect effect, no, how native composition change once the immigrants arrive. The second term will be the direct peer effect, immigrant peer effect, no, what I call just the immigrant peer effect. And the third term would be how local institutions change. I won't talk a lot about local institution change because I believe that the change was very fast and didn't change that, but it's also a possibility. No? I mostly will talk about changing composition of natives when I refer about indirect effects. So now that you got the idea, when I estimate neighborhood effect, actually I take the total derivative. All the effects in the neighborhood that could be due native composition change because of immigrants, direct effect of immigrants, so immigrant peer effect, or change in local institution. So now about how I estimate the immigrant effect on neighborhood. First, I will give you the intuition how I estimate the neighborhood effect, and then I will talk about the main specification in my results. So this is how I estimate neighborhood effects. Remember that I will estimate neighborhood effects in two different windows, before immigrants arrive and after immigrants arrive. And the way I estimate this fixed effect is the following. So first, the neighborhood effect is the influence of the neighborhood. And I identify the influence of the neighborhood by looking at two sets of children that live in a specific municipality, in this case, municipality A. The red points is where schools are located, and this is the actual map of Chile. And let's say that there is two sets of children. One in group one, they are 7 years old, and the other group, they are older, they are 8 years old. So if they move from municipality A to municipality B the same year, and they take a test when they are 10 years old, I can say that the difference between these two groups of kids are reflecting the neighborhood influence on them. No? Why? Because those kids that move younger, they have more time exposed in municipality B in this case. In particularly, the difference between these two groups will give me what is the gain of spending 1 year in municipality B instead of 1 year in municipality A. So in this example, I said, well, if the difference between these two groups is 5 points, no, I said that municipality B is better than municipality A by 5 points per year spent. No? So this is a distinction that is very relevant. To estimate neighborhood effect, I will use native movers. Okay, so it could be a little bit confusing because I look how the immigrants, foreign immigrants, are affecting this neighborhood effect. But don't be confused about that. I will use different people for the different estimation. So then I apply this intuition into a specification where I said that the outcome of a specific kid is a function of the time exposed, the time exposure in destination, multiplied by the by the neighborhood effect in destination minus the neighborhood effects in origin, no? Plus a fixed effect that characterize students based on the origin, destination, parallel levels of education, and year of movement. Because of time, I won't get into much detail about this specification, but with the intuition, you get an idea that what I'm using is that the timing of exposure, no? And this specification, as you may think, requires two assumptions. First is about the statistical model assumption, that is that the neighborhood effects are linear and constant in time. You know? But the other that is very relevant is that the age at move is orthogonal to the potential outcome of students. So this means that these two group of kids I was showing you before, they have to have the same potential outcome. So another way of saying is that these kids that are moving at 7 or 8 years old, they are the same kids, no? They are similar. There is a question in the chat or not? Okay.
Yeah.
Is the neighborhood,
yeah. Yes? So Hapo is asking whether the neighborhood effects are the same for natives or immigrants. And there is also, I give you just another one as well, if I may. Couldn't there be factors other than incoming migrants that would affect natives' movement to other areas? Those are the two questions that we have right now.
Sorry, I didn't get the second question.
So the second one is whether there could be other factors than incoming migrants that would affect the natives' movement to other areas. So basically the migration, right?
Yes. Yes, I guess that there are. So let me start with the last question. I think that there could be different reasons why natives move out. Actually, I don't know exactly the reason why they are moving to other neighborhoods and why they are moving to private schools. It's I guess it's something that I would like to continue studying. I mean, it's not. I guess I would like to continue studying that. It's true. It could be because of housing market. It could be labor market, or it could be what they call in the literature native flight. It's just that you would like to reduce interaction. Um, I will talk about that when I look at native composition change. And now about um, the the neighborhood effects is similar for natives and immigrants. That's a very good question, and I have not done that yet, but I would like to. I would like to do it for sure because I would like to see the gain of immigrants when they are moving into Chile. Um, but for now, what I'm always estimating is the neighborhood effect for natives. Okay? So as I was saying, I use this specification to estimate each neighborhood effect. And what I do is that I estimate neighborhood effect in two periods, no? Before immigrants arrive and after immigrants arrive. And I put it in a different specification, the one that is here, number one. So basically I said that the change in neighborhood effect, this is just to change it to a first difference, is a function of the arrival of immigrants. And so it's very simple, but because the increase of immigrants was very sharp and fast and important, it's something that I can do. If you look at the details here, we can see that I split it in two windows between 2013 and 2019. That is when immigrants started arriving, and then from 2005 to 2012. And then I used the immigrants increase only from 2013 to 2019 because it's the relevant increase of immigrants. So as any different diff assumption, this requires the parallel trend assumption. And that still, we could think that this doesn't hold if immigrants are arriving into places based on neighborhood effects. So that's why I introduced the shift share based on 2002 census and looking at 10 different nationalities and 2 educational level groups. All these 10 nationalities are from Latin America, and the 2 educational level group is if you have tertiary education or not. Yes, there is a question.
Yeah, a question by Andres. So he's wondering whether placebo regression may help to understand the mechanism. Just as an example, analyzing regions that did not receive migrants and see whether there was any movement there.
Yes, yes, that's a good question. Actually, my next step is to do something similar, and is to I don't know if you are familiar with this Adao paper that look at they adjust standard errors because they said, well, actually, what we are exploiting is the fact that the composition of those that are arriving are exogenous, not the share of immigrants. So what they do is that the kind of placebo test that showing what happened if instead of Venezuelans being the first to move in are Argentinians. What happened if most of increases Argentinian, or most increases Bolivian, or most increases Peruvian, and you try different placebo tests in order to see if you find the same effect. And if you don't, then you say, well, actually what I found is actually significant, statistically significant in that context. So
Sorry.
yes.
So, Wendy, if I may just pitch in briefly, I was wondering whether before the inflows of migrants, you observe a different degree of movement of natives. Like, do you observe an increase in the movement of natives after the inflows of migrants?
Yes, I do. I do find. So that this is critical, no? Because I'm using the natives are moving in my neighborhood effect estimation, and they may be moving for other reasons that those are moving before. So that's why I need this neighborhood effect methodology. That's why I exploit the age when they move and not just comparing movers in two periods. I exploit the fact that you move at different age and what is one additional year. But it's true. That's very relevant, and that's why I use the neighborhood effect methodology in particular. Yes. Okay, so sorry. Uh, so about the, I cannot go back. I don't know why. It's there. So, so this is my specification. I use a shift share, and then as let me remind you what the assumption that I have been used. First, the statistical model assumptions, the fact that neighborhood effects are constant and linear. Then that the student potential outcome is orthogonal to the age of the movement. And the third one is the parallel train of neighborhood effects. So I have tests to provide support for these assumptions. And I will just show you one because of time. And I guess is that the most of the time is the question that people ask, and that is the fact that, well, I think that those kids are moving at different age are different. You know? The fact that the family moved with a kid of 8 years old or 9 years old, and is because of different reasons. So it's likely that families and potential outcome of kids are different. So to deal with that and to provide evidence for that assumption, what I do is that I introduce a test that is before the test score in 10 years at 10 years old. This is a test in second grade. So this is when kids are 8 years old. And I looked at those that are moving after are not different in this baseline test. No? Those that are moving in fourth, fifth, or sixth grade are not different to those that are moving in third grade. In this case, we cannot see third grade because it's absorbed because of fixed effects, but that's my baseline. No? So by providing this test, I can say that kids that are moving in third, fourth, fifth, or sixth grade are similar in their baseline test. No? So now let me show you the results. The first stage is showing that my instrument is predicting well the increase of immigrants. And the OLS and the 2SLS are very similar, which tells that actually immigrants were not locating into neighborhood based on neighborhood effect or a changing trend in neighborhood effect. And we see here that the effect is 0.14 percentiles per 1 percentile increase in migrants. So, if we scale this and we transform it in test standard deviation, we get the result that I just told you at the beginning, that is that a 1 increase of standard deviation in migrants into a neighborhood decrease student test score by 0.14 test standard deviation if they move in first grade. So this means 4 years of exposure. No? So let me now talk in the time that I have left about the pure effect. So because I have 8 minutes left, I would like to just give you the idea of what I do and show you the results. So sorry, I guess that here what you can do, at least what I have seen in the literature, is that you can do two different methods. The first one is compare classes in the same grade or school cohort, or compare school cohorts in the same school. No? So I do both. I do both, and what I do that is better for identification is that I compare two different school cohorts the same year because I have test scores in the same year. So I look at test score in fourth and sixth grade at the same time when they have different level of exposure to immigrants. No? And this is the first method, the first approach. And the second approach is just comparing classes in the same school cohort. So what I found is a null effect using both methods. No? The first column is comparing school cohorts. No? So I said that the fourth grade received one more immigrant than sixth grade in the same school, and I compare the test scores. As you can see, this is null effect, and also it's economically not significant compared to the other results. I also compare across classes in fourth grade. So this means that you have one more immigrant in the class compared to another class in the same school grade also. And I do the same with sixth grade. So as you can see, this is a null effect and a precise estimated null effect. So now, sorry, finally, to look at native response, I look at first I look if native students are moving to municipality with fewer immigrants, um, and if natives are moving to private school in the same neighborhood. So for this, I do a diff and diff, and I see if the enrollment in primary school in the neighborhood is changing because immigrants arrival. Then I look if the natives enrollment in private school is changing once immigrants arrive. Then I see how segregation is changing once immigrants arrive. And then I look at I do an analysis of the riches in the neighborhood. So I look at the 19th percentile in the neighborhood and see how their income change in time as well. For all this specification, I use a shift share instrument, the same shift share that I was using before. So this is my diff and diff result. The first page is very similar to what I just showed you before, so it's very predictive. And here again, this is using percentiles, so I have to scale it to see what is the effect in terms of one immigrant coming in and one native moving out. But as I was telling you before, this means that one immigrant that is coming in is reflecting that there's one native less in the same neighborhood compared to the other neighborhoods in Chile. You know? So once that we scale, the relation is 1-to-1. Then if I do the same, but look at a private school, as you can see in column 4, you know, the first stage is similar, but now I'll focus just in the 2SLS, column 4. We can see that actually immigrants are accelerating the movement to private school, but those neighborhoods that receive immigrants, they were already having some movement into private school. And once the immigrants arrive, this increase and much more. You know? It's triple the, because this is double, but is over that specific baseline. You know? So, and the relation now is that 0.4 natives are moving to private school per one immigrant moving into a neighborhood.
I'm sorry, is this private schools in the same neighborhood or also across neighborhoods or all together?
Yes, that's a good question. Is private school in the same neighborhood? So we can say that natives have two different strategies. So some of them move to other neighborhoods and some of them move to private school. Okay. And this results in an increase in segregation. This is using a tail index, but I have the same result using Atkinson index or other type of index of segregation, where the segregation in the same neighborhood increase. I also showed that the segregation in the city increase as well. So not only in the neighborhood, also in the city, which is very relevant as well. Yes, someone raise a hand, I think. Yes, no?
No, I don't see
okay.
that.
Sorry,
in any case, we'll be back after in the Q&A.
My mistake. Okay, yes.
No worries.
And finally, I do an analysis of what I call the riches or the 19th percentile. And what I do here is that I take the 19th percentile income level, the level of income, and see if this 19th percentile is changing once immigrants arrive. And what we can see is that once immigrants arrive, this 19th percentile have a lower income, which means that the riches in the neighborhood are poorer. No? And this is evidence to say that those are moving out are the richest, no? in the specific neighborhood. I also do the same with the 50 percentile and other percentile. I see no change, and that's why this is specifically evidence of that the richest are the ones that are moving out to other neighborhoods. So this is just a graphical view. I changed a little bit the specification to have this graphical view because the other one have 6-year change, as I was saying. And this is the left panel is showing native flight to private schools, and the right panel is showing the segregation index. Okay. So to conclude, I find a negative impact of migration on neighborhood effects. I do not find a negative immigrant peer effect. I also find that natives are moving to private school and to other municipalities with fewer immigrants. So the plausible or the most plausible story is that academically stronger natives move away, decreasing the learning opportunity for those that remain in the neighborhood. And finally, just a final word on segregation. The immigration in Chile led to an important increase in segregation, in school segregation. So possibly suggesting a need for offsetting policies for offsetting policies where large immigrant flow occur in different neighborhoods. So thank you for your time. Just in time.
Yeah, perfect. Just in time, all good. Thank you for this nice presentation. So as far as I can see, nobody raised the hand. So please, I mean, if you want to ask question to Juan, please use the raise your hand function. I will just start. Okay, I will give the floor to Andres, and then I will ask my question later. So Andres, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, Lucas.
Yeah, perfect. I can hear you.
Juan Diego, thank you. Very nice presentation. I just have some. I'm trying to understand what you were talking about the test scores. The test score gaps. I think it's an interesting question. I'm trying to put like together all the story. So basically, the story is this. And let me know if I'm right about this. So basically, what we have is we can say there are some migrants of Colombia going to Chile, right? And when the neighborhood received these migrants, so those families who were in this neighborhood, which were natives, they will move to another community and send their children to the school. But because some children are going to be older than the other ones, then the exposure to the test score before the test is going to be bigger or smaller. So I wonder if when you compare these test score results, actually you find that those ones who move and were more exposed actually improve in their performance. So in that sense, what kind of policy implication can you take in that? Because what it will reflect is actually like this migration, it will be better. It will be actually better. So I was wondering, like, what kind of policy can you think if my story is right? The other thing is that is the case, then if you are when you are analyzing test score, if you control for any baseline school quality, or if they were before in private or in public schools, then when they go to another neighborhood, they are also in a private school. I wonder if you control for anything of this quality. Yeah, those are my two questions.
Thanks. Juan, do you want to answer to them directly? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, please do so.
Okay. So first, you're right about the story that the ones that Colombians, for instance, are coming into a neighborhood, natives, especially those that are richest, move to other neighborhoods, no, and that changed that changed the neighborhood effect, and the way you estimate these neighborhood effects, so these are fixed effects, is using the time exposure. So I don't know if you're familiar, for instance, with teacher effect or with film effect, but it's the same idea. No, you get these kids are moving at different age, they have different exposure to neighborhood, and then you estimate the fixed effect of that specific neighborhood. And what I do is I do this 2 times, before immigrants arrive and after immigrants start arriving. I have these 2 fixed effects, and I said, well, given that more immigrants arrive into this neighborhood, imagine that more Colombians, then the neighborhood effect drop, no, decrease because of this arrival of immigrants. And then when I look at the reason why this drop, I see that there is no direct effects, no immigrant peer effect, and I suggest that this is because natives, our riches are moving away. Okay, that's about this story. Then about analyzing test scores, I do not control by nothing at the neighborhood level because that's part of what I call neighborhood effects. So this is a little bit about the neighborhood effects are kind of I don't want to say black box, but it's true that we don't know exactly everything that's going on in the neighborhood. I suggest that this is a native composition effect, but it could be also about the local institution, no? That it's not only schools, it's also, I don't know, green areas, crime, and other things that could affect native test scores. No? So this fixed effect captures everything that's going on at the neighborhood level under the assumptions that I just mentioned. And now about policy implications, I talk a little bit about that. When I said that we need some offsetting policies because there is an increase in segregation, and at least in the case of Valora Lerner-Court, around 70 years ago, she found that this increase in segregation have other implications that affect social mobility in the end. Of course, it's a very different context. This is the US, is the black migration from south to north, but still, I find it interesting to think what can happen or what could happen in the specific case of Chile, and I guess that I would need more study and more research to see what's going on. Yeah, and about no, I guess that's it. Final on policy implications. I guess that what people would be more tempting is to say, well, you need to allocate immigrants uniform across all neighborhoods. No? That could help to don't have these issues. I guess that could be a solution, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly if that's possible first, and if that could help.
Yeah. Thank you, Juan. I think it's very interesting. Especially now in Latin America. I am originally from Colombia, but for instance, we have been receiving like a lot of migrants from Venezuela, which is a new phenomenon, and it's very good. I mean, this for sure have some implications in other spheres related like test score or segregation or mobility between regions. Thank you so much. Very interesting paper.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions? No. Then I will ask one or two questions. So the first one I have is that the effects are big, right? I mean, relatively big. The one-to-one change, and even the change on the private school is quite big. And so I was wondering whether you have like any ideas what's going on, what can drive those effects. I mean, I know that it's a bit. I mean, you seem not to have too much information at the municipality level to look at this, but I don't know anything that might be relevant. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that, so correct me if I am wrong, but the assumption is that the neighborhood effects they should be constant over time, right? So, or do you allow them to vary over time? If not, then I mean, I think at least because I mean the neighbor, what you call a neighborhood is a municipality, right? So it's, I guess, I mean, I don't know the details in Chile, but I guess it's quite big, right? I mean, at least in some municipalities, this is quite big. So I was wondering whether you could, I mean, I don't know, just show some descriptive statistics on very maybe. I mean, maybe that doesn't exist. I don't know, but on like just economic statistics, you know, like I don't know, GDP or unemployment rate, and see whether like this is like varying over time, at least on your sample frame, just so that I will be a bit reassured that, you know, like not a lot of things is happening except what you have in mind in your story.
So about neighborhood effect, yes, there are the idea is that these are constant in time, or these are an average of a period. And so these are average of the period before immigrants arrive and then the period after immigrants arrive. And I pulled all these years because I need data. Because I only use movers, I need to pull all these years and estimate fixed effect in order to estimate more neighborhoods. And that's the reason why I do. In Chetty and Hendren, they also pull like similar years, 8 years, something the same as I do. Now about the size of municipality, these municipalities are like half of a county in the US, which means that these are around 50,000 people living there, which means that each cohort is around 700. So the 4th grade cohort, they are 700, which implies that there are like 7 schools. So it's true. It's not a small neighborhood, and of course it's an average. It could be different.
So
have some variation. Yes?
Yeah. So one thing that could be interesting, for instance, would be that you exclude like the big municipalities from your sample, and you look at like medium or small municipalities, and then I mean we might maybe expect that there like changes in economic activity and things like this might be a bit lower. I don't know. I'm not sure about this. But I would be reassured if you show that. I mean, what's in a bit behind your big effects, because they are really big.
But sorry, you're concerned about the effect of natives moving to other neighborhoods.
Yeah, or just I don't know, like I don't, or just I mean. Just also like before and after. So you have a before and after, right? So you're taking average. So just whether I mean, I'm a bit concerned that some other things might be around and they might be part of the story, and maybe explaining then the big effects, I might be that in the end, like your story is only explaining, I don't know, 30 or 40% of these big effects. And I mean, I would like to know more whether your story is exactly the one-to-one change.
Yes, I'm to be honest, I was more surprised about so the relation one-to-one could be just be explained by housing market. If you have a very inelastic supply, then one immigrant coming in is displacing one native because they are asking for the rent in the house. So, but I was more surprised about the effect on private schools. But still, I compared to numbers in the US and to numbers also in Spain, results are similar. In the US, even they are larger. The effects of native flight, in particular. And about the I guess that's all I have to say. So for instance, in the case of the what is super study, that is this great migration in the US, they found that the effect is around 3 natives moving away per 1 immigrant coming in. So it's true, it's very particular, it's very specific, but still it tells you that this could happen. No, it's not that it have never happened in this history of migration, or when you have different culturally people coming into a neighborhood.
All right, thanks. Then I let Alexia closing. I think we don't have any other questions as far as I can see. So Alexia will close the seminar.
Right, thank you very much. Let me just share my screen briefly. There we go. Can you all see my screen? Okay, perfect. First of all, thank you so much, Juan Diogo, for this extremely interesting presentation and for the very vivid and lively discussion afterwards. This was definitely a great start into the new year. Thank you for this. Next Monday, on the January 18th, we welcome Jules Gazot from North Africa, who will speak about his paper, Cash Transfers and Migration, Theory and Evidence from a Randomized Controlled Trial. We look forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, please feel free to visit our website and submit the paper if you have one in progress that you would like to share with us. Submissions will be reviewed on a rolling basis as usual. There is one big news in 2021, which is the possibility for participants to register in advance as panelists, which allows you to interact a little more closely with the speaker and the organizers. In order to do so, you just click on the regular Zoom registration link and tick the question where it asks if you would like to be a panelist or not. Panelists are expected to read the paper in advance and to register before Friday, so for the Monday to come, and then to join the seminars just 5 minutes prior to the start so we can upgrade you to a panelist. Okay, that's all from my side. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great week.